Good evening, YouTubers. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever it is, wherever you are. I'm glad to have you with me here on YouTube for the current events. Here we are on the 8th day of November 2016, Election Day. It's going to be a wild ride throughout the day and throughout the evening with the election events. I've got a lot of news to bring you, and obviously most of it has to do something with the election. But hang with me through this whole thing. We'll ride on through this, and I've got a good act of kindness at the end of this that I think you'll really enjoy. So we'll hop right on into the news here this evening, or this morning, or whatever it is. My days are running into nights, and nights are running into days with all this. Hopefully once this election's over with, I can start to figure out whether I'm in the daytime, the nighttime, or what time it is. Uh, this first one I have for you is off of space.com, and it says, what Trump or Clinton would mean for space. Experts weigh in. And all these URLs, of course, are in the description of the video, as per always, in case you want to do more research on them or look at any videos that might be in them or click on any of the links that's in them, because there's a lot of things that you can research on these. I just hit the high points. It's up to you to finish doing the research on them. But this one is what Trump or Clinton would mean for space. Experts weigh in. Ahead of tomorrow's presidential election, obviously this was written yesterday, some voters may wonder what each candidate will do for America's space program. So space.com spoke with space policy experts to see what they had to say. The President of the United States has substantial influence on NASA's leadership, budget, and program direction. The president nominates NASA's administrator and deputy administrator, the top two leadership positions in the agency. In addition, the president's budget proposals can deeply affect NASA, like when President Obama's 2011 budget effectively ended NASA's multi-billion-dollar Constellation program, which would have returned humans to the moon. But it's almost impossible to know what direction each candidate might choose for the American space program before the leader enters office, said two space policy experts who spoke with space.com. On the campaign trail, space isn't an issue that will sway many voters, so the candidates tend to remain fairly vague about what stance they'll take on particular policies of programs and positions appointments. 50 years of presidential visions for space exploration. No presidential candidate has ever won a state on the basis of his or her position on a state on the space program, said John Logsdon, a professor emeritus of political science and international affairs at George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs in Washington, D.C. It's really not an electoral issue in terms of deciding outcomes. He added that while space may not be a deciding issue, every candidate in one form or another has to formulate a campaign position on space. Logsdon founded the Elliott School's Space Policy Institute in 1987 and wrote 2 books about presidential administrations and the space program. Gibson said neither of the presidential candidates for 2 major political parties this year has said a great deal about space policy. In that regard, Logsdon said he hasn't seen any major differences between this year's contest and presidential campaigns in the recent past. The Planetary Society, a nonprofit organization dedicated to space education, advocacy, and outreach, has been collecting statements made by Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump or by campaign representatives that relate to NASA and space policy. Those statements are available to view on the Planetary Society website. Both the Clinton and Trump campaigns responded to a series of questions posed by Space News, a spaceflight industry trade publication which is syndicated here on space.com. In addition, members of the Trump campaign had an op-ed published in Space News on October the 19th and another on October 24th. A surrogate for Clinton campaign had an op-ed published in Space News on October the 25th. Collectively, these articles seem to be the most extensive descriptions of each candidate's space policy positions. How do the candidates differ? Logsdon said he has not heard anything from either of the candidates or their campaigns regarding space that's particularly bold or noteworthy. He also said that in space policy, I don't see much difference between the two candidates. There are two subtle points on which Clinton and Trump seem to differ. The first is that Trump campaign has said that NASA should spend little or no effort studying the Earth from space. NASA should be focused primarily on deep space activities rather than Earth-centric work that is better handled by other agencies. By Robert S. Walker and Pete Navarro, both senior advisors to the Trump campaign, wrote in the op-ed published in Space News on October the 19th. Earth science is the one area of NASA that has been very politicized over the last few years, mainly because Earth science relates to climate change, said Casey Dreyer, Director of Space Policy at the Planetary Society. As a nonprofit, the society must remain nonpartisan, but it is permitted to have a stance on particular policies, including bills and budgets that affect space, as well as particular missions within NASA. Logsdon also said that Republican Party leaders in Congress have pushed to get NASA out of aviation business because it's linked to their skepticism about the validity of climate change. Last year, NASA's Administrator Charles Bolden defended NASA's Earth observing activities to members of the Senate Commerce Space Subcommittee, some of whom questioned whether those activities were in line with NASA's core mission. In the op-ed published in Space News on October the 25th, Jim Kohlenberger, who is the former chief of staff for the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy for President Obama, wrote, "As our planet warms, melting ice sheets, altering ocean chemistry, and affecting the lives of every person, NASA and NOAA's, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, low Earth orbit and Earth observation programs are invaluable in furthering our understanding of what those changes mean for everything from safety of our coastal communities to global weather patterns." Dreyer said he thinks it is likely Clinton would continue the Obama administration's of Earth science at NASA, keeping funding at around $1.8 billion to $2 billion a year. Logsdon said decisions about NASA's role in Earth science constitute one of the top issues the next president will face. Another difference between the two candidates is the specific mention of counsel to advise president on space-related issues in the op-ed by Walker and Navarro from October 19th. They specifically stated a Trump administration would end the lack of proper coordination by reinstituting a National Space Policy Council headed by the vice president. Kohlenberger op-ed about Clinton didn't mention such a council specifically, but he stated that in order to solve problems more effectively and expeditiously, Clinton will evaluate executive branch coordination of federal agency space initiatives. Logsdon said he thinks the phase elevate coordination is a way of saying the same thing without committing to the Space Council mechanism. Announcing plans to form a Space Council might be a way for candidates to show that space will be important to their administration, Dreyer said. But the caveat there is that it's utterly up to President how much he or she listens to the council, Dreyer said. Appointing a Space Council is not a bad thing, but it's not a slam dunk either. It is an encouraging sign that space will be taken seriously, but it's not a requirement. What issues will the next president have to deal with? Logsdon and Dreyer agreed that the next president will have to make a major decision regarding NASA's current plan to send humans to Mars. NASA is working to build the Space Launch System, SLS, rocket Orion space capsule, which will be able to carry humans to deep space destinations. However, additional hardware, including a long-duration space vehicle and Mars landing system, will be needed for those missions. In the meantime, NASA has contracted Boeing and SpaceX to build spacecraft that can fly humans to the International Space Station and low Earth orbit destinations. But the first commercial crew mission won't fly until 2017 at the earliest, and the first crewed flights of the Orion human space capsule aren't expected until at least early 2020s, Dreyer said. Dreyer said this isn't an unprecedented transaction. The U.S. also had a period between the end of the Apollo program and the beginning of the Space Shuttle program when the country didn't have an in-house system for flying humans into space. The next president is inheriting a space program that has NASA's ambition to go to Mars, but doesn't have hardware actually flying yet, Dreyer said. So there's a lot of opportunity for the next administration to say, should we continue with these programs? What will the direction be? So we want to commit to supporting these programs, or I'm sorry, do we want to commit to supporting these programs as is? Do we change them? Do we cancel them? So it's a big question mark. In addition, experts at NASA and the human spaceflight community are debating the merits of establishing a more permanent human presence on the moon before sending people to the red planet. NASA doesn't have a budget to do both, Dreyer said, so a decision to focus on the moon would mean to end to NASA's current plan to send humans to Mars by the first half of the 2030s. The next president may also have to decide whether the United States will continue to particularly operate the International Space Station beyond 2024, Logsdon said. Space industry experts have discussed possible options for bringing in commercial partners to take up part of the cost operating and maintaining the station. Another alternative is to retire the station. It will eventually age out of its safe operational lifetime and let low Earth orbit activities take place in private space stations. Another major NASA milestone scheduled to take place during the next administration is the launch and deployment of the James Webb Space Telescope. Launch is scheduled for 2018, which has been plagued by budget overruns. During a press conference on the current status of Webb, Bolden addressed a question about how the program might be affected by the entrance of a new administration. We're about to go through a period of what we call transition, Bolden said. We have done what I have always said about NASA. We've told people what we're going to do. We made a commitment of schedule and time, and we have been on that for about 6 years now. So I think the story we have to tell and the record of performance that we have should stand us in good stead. It would be crazy to tell you that anything can survive over a transition, but I'm comfortable about Webb, as I am about most of what NASA is doing today. When we know how the next administration will handle space policy, even after Americans find out who their next president will be, it could still be some time before the person reveals his or her plans for space, Dreyer said, because space is not generally considered a top presidential priority. The emphasis is that any administration places on that area can depend largely on the president's personal passion for it. But even a president's enthusiasm may be run up against budget concerns. Dreyer gave the example of George H.W. Bush, who campaigned passionately to initiate human missions to the moon and Mars. The project was deemed far too costly and never moved forward. Historically, we've seen that it tends to be up to the interest of the president, of the interest of key members of Congress to really drive space policy, Dreyer said, and that is hard to predict in advance. The article that I have is off of wearechange.org, and it says internet sleuths are convinced that the Podestas are the kidnappers in these police sketches. And if you pull this up, you'll be able to take a look at a video. It shows you their pictures and their sketches in this. And I mean, the resemblance is uncanny. I'll tell you what. And this article says Madeleine Beth McCann should have celebrated her 13th birthday with her family in England this year, but she vanished from her bed during a family vacation to Portugal in 2003. The case gripped the entire world, becoming one of the most high-profile missing person cases in history. Coverage of her kidnapping was comparable to the press interest in the death of Princess Diana. Her parents had been out with friends at the hotel restaurant during Her parents had been out with friends at the hotel restaurant approximately 200 feet from where the child had been sleeping. When her mother, Kate McCann, went to check on her around 11 p.m., she was gone. We go to bed every night with the agonizing feeling that just maybe tomorrow we will find something to lead us back to Madeleine, to let us know what happened, to give us hope, Kate McCann, who is now an ambassador for missing people, said at the launch of a new nonprofit organization called Find Every Child in London this week. Though it has been nearly a decade since their little girl vanished, the family has continued to search and believe that there is a possibility that she may still be alive. When my little girl first disappeared on that horrendous night that changed our lives forever, I could never have imagined that nearly 10 years later we would still be in the same position, she continued. In 2013, 5 years after Portuguese police had closed the case, they reopened it and revealed two new police sketches. It was believed that they were supposed to be of the same man, but it was believed that they were supposed to be of the same man, but from two different witnesses. Reddit and others on social media are now asking what if it was actually two different men, and what if it was the Podestas? And there are some tweets involved in this if you want to pull that up and read those. And it says an email found in WikiLeaks released of John Podesta's emails at the time of McCann's disappearance implies that he may have been vacationing around the time of her disappearance, but does not indicate where. People have also pointed out that yet another police sketch related to the case looks strikingly similar to Anthony Weiner. And they got a picture of him and they got a sketch of him there too. The rumor began to go viral. Twitter went offline for about 20 minutes, which helped to fuel the theorists even more. WikiLeaks was also the target of a DDoS attack. And they've got more tweets and stuff concerning that. And it says, bizarrely worded messages in the Podesta emails had led to conspiracy theories on 4chan and Reddit that John Podesta was involved in some sort of child sex ring last week. Then it goes on down here and it says Tony Podesta's home also contains photographs of nude teenage girls in one bedroom because art. Folks attending a house tour in Lake Barkoff neighborhood in Falls Church earlier this year got an eyeful when they walked into a bedroom that Podesta residents hung with multiple color pictures by Katie Grannon, a photographer known for documentary-style pictures of naked teenagers in their parents' suburban homes, the Washington Post reported in 2004. They were horrified. Tony's wife, Heather, told the Post of her guest reactions as a grin reportedly spread across her face. While it is extremely far-fetched that the Podestas would be involved in this extremely high-profile missing person case, the fact that thousands of people are having serious discussions about it on a Sunday evening speaks volumes about the trust people have in Hillary Clinton's early inner circle. So there you have that article. And then I have another one here, regated.com. And it says 4chan speculates that John Podesta and Tony Podesta kidnapped Madeleine McCann. 4chan users speculate that John Podesta and Tony Podesta are kidnappers. These users believe they may be responsible for Madeleine McCann's disappearance. WikiLeaks has released thousands of emails from John Podesta. In these emails, we learned about spirit cooking. It is a satanical ritual in which participants cut themselves and use their blood to make art. Stephen, and I can't pronounce these last names, Lord have mercy, Pazanik, I'm guessing, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Kissinger, made some bold statements recently. Pasanic came out to say that the Clintons partake in child sex trafficking. He believes there is a connection. Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton, who made frequent visits on the Lolita Express. Jeffrey Epstein was then taken to court and found to be a pedophile. Of course, these are all just allegations. There is no verification in any of these claims. 4chan began moving forward with their investigation on Madeline. They put together police sketches of the alleged kidnappers and morphed them with the brothers. Face morph of John and Tony Podesta compared to police sketches. And there's a little video of that if you want to pull that up and check it out. It says, in our own research, we found that the police sketches are actually just one person. Once 4chan users found this out, those users began speculating that it may have only been one of them. To anyone that looks at the images above, it's shocking how similar the drawings are to the brothers. It's important to note that there is no incriminating evidence against John or Tony Podesta. When claims that suspects of kidnapping may have been found, it shouldn't get ignored. So there you have that one. Then I have another one here that I wanted to bring up right with those. So let me get that one in here too. This one is off of regated.com. It says, is Hillary evil? Google searches spike after spirit cooking scandal. And this one reads, in a recent batch of leaked Podesta emails have revealed that John Podesta has a questionable inner circle. Additionally, the content of said email has led to very popular question, is Hillary evil? Not only has there been a surge of is Hillary evil searches, but people are also searching to see if Hillary is a witch. To make matters worse, people are beginning to question if Hillary Clinton could be the devil herself. Voters associating your candidate with evil imagery isn't exactly a campaign manager's wet dream. Also, the fact that Hillary's campaign chairman is on a first-name basis with folks who engage in spirit cooking, black magic, reflects rather poorly on Hillary as well. You know what they say, you hang out with people who paint with a mixture of blood, breast milk, and semen on the walls, you're bound to raise a few eyebrows. So there's that one. I mean, this just keeps getting stranger and stranger. All right, this is off of the Washington Post, and I don't know. I mean, some people may consider this sad news. Janet Reno, former U.S. Attorney General, dies at age 78. Out of Miami, Florida. Shy and admittedly awkward, Janet Reno became a blunt prosecutor and first woman to serve as U.S. Attorney General. She was also at the epicenter of a relentless series of political storms during the Clinton administration, from the deadly raid on the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas, to the seizure of 5-year-old Cuban immigrant Elian Gonzalez. One of the Clinton administration's most recognizable and polarizing figures, Reno faced criticism early in her tenure for the deadly raid on the Branch Davidian compound at Waco, Texas, where sect leader David Koresh and some 80 followers perished. Known for deliberating slowly, publicly, and in a typically blunt manner, Reno frequently said, "The buck stops with me," borrowing the mantra from President Harry S. Truman. Reno, age 78, died early Monday of complications from Parkinson's disease. Her goddaughter, Gabrielle Delemberte, told the Associated Press. Delemberte said Reno spent her final days at the home in Miami, surrounded by family and friends who sang songs and recited poetry at her side. Her sister, Maggie Reno Herchala, told the Associated Press that former President Bill Clinton called over the weekend and said, "Tell Janet I love her," and that many others from her career visited or called, including former Florida Governor and Senator Bob Graham. "When I tucked her in at night, I said, 'I love you,'" Herchala said. "She looked like she was asleep and raised one eyebrow and said, 'I love you too very much.' She was surrounded this week by people who loved her." After Waco, Reno figured into some of the controversies and scandals that marked the Clinton's administration, including Whitewater, Philligate, um, bungling at the FBI laboratory, Monica Lewinsky, alleged Chinese nuclear spying, and questionable campaign. Oops. Well, okay. You'll have to bear with me a minute. My browser decided to fall off the face of the earth. Oh, I hate it when stuff like this happens. My goodness. Okay. Waiting. Where's my hamster when I need him? Come on, little hamster. Run, little feller. Oh my, I gotta get the whole browser back up here. It's coming. My little hamster's working as hard as he can. You know, he's only got 3 legs, 1 brain cell. My goodness. It's gonna be one of those days, I guess, where anything that can happen. Okay, here we go. It's coming back up now. All right. Um, yeah. Now let's get back where we were here. After Waco, Reno, on hold still. After Waco, Reno figured into some controversies and scandals that marked the Clinton administration, including Whitewater, Philligate, bungling at the FBI laboratory, Monica Lewinsky, alleged Chinese nuclear spying, and questionable campaign financing in the 19 Gore re-election. 2000 Reno hometown Cuban American community when she authorized the armed seizure of young Elian. The boy was taken from the Little Havana home relatives so he could be returned to his father in Cuba. Tenure at the Justice Department, the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing case captured the Unabomber Theodore Kaczynski that same year and investigated the 1993 terrorist attack on New York's World Trade Center. The department also filed a major antitrust lawsuit Corporation, and Reno was a strong advocate for protecting abortion clinics from violence. President Barack Obama called her an American original in a White House statement. When Janet Reno arrived in Washington in 1993, the city had never seen anyone like her before and hasn't since, Obama said. Her legacy lives on in generation of lawyers she inspired, the ordinary lives she touched, and a nation that is more just. Attorney General Loretta Lynch praised Reno's integrity and status as female trailblazer, calling Reno in a statement one of the most effective, decisive, and well-respected leaders in a lawyer because I didn't want people to tell me what to do. In 1993, Clinton tapped her to become the first woman to lead the Justice Department after his first two choices, also women, were withdrawn because both had parents as nannies. Reno was 54. It's an extraordinary experience, and I hope to do the women of America proud, Reno said after she won confirmation. Vote might be the only vote I carry to zero this year. More than a month after taking office, however, Reno became embroiled in controversy with a raid on the Branch Davidian compound near Waco. The standoff had started even before Reno was confirmed as Attorney General. On February 28, 1993, agents from U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms made a surprise raid on the compound, trying to execute a search warrant. Gunfire erupted, killing 6 members of the religious sect. That led to a 51-day standoff ending April the 19th, 1993, when the complex caught fire and burned to the ground. The government claimed the Davidians committed suicide, shooting themselves and setting the fire. Survivors said the blaze was started by tear gas fired into the compound by government tanks, and that agents shot at some who tried to flee. Reno had authorized the use of tear gas to end the standoff and later called the day the worst day of her life. It was a dangerous situation, Reno said of the incident during a 5 lecture at Duke University. Is that we will never know what to do. Easier after Waco in 1995, Reno was diagnosed with Parkinson's after noticing a trembling in her left hand. She said from the beginning that the diagnosis, which she announced during a weekly news conference, would not impair her job performance, and critics, both Republican and Democrat, did not give her a pass because of it. Argued that she should have sought appointment counsel to investigate allegations of Clinton Gore fundraising violations. Democrats, meanwhile, grumbled that she failed to act as a team player. In 2000, Reno tried to negotiate a return to Cuba of young Elian, who had been rescued after his mother and others had drowned trying Cuba to Florida. He had been placed in the care of a Miami uncle who lived in Cuba, wanted him returned to the island. Decided talks had broken down that April, she ordered an early morning raid by federal agents who seized the boy, provoking the ire of Miami's Cuban-American community. Reno insisted that Elian should be with his father. She even kept a snapshot of a smiling Elian in his father's arms near her home computer. Reno said later that federal officials up until the last minute to negotiate a voluntary handover to avoid the raid, where Elian was found hiding in a closet and confronted by an agent with a gun. Been to great lengths to resolve this case in the least disruptive manner possible, she said at a news conference following the raid. As Attorney General, Reno often was teased by late-night talk show hosts for her unassuming appearance, no-nonsense attitude. Comedian Will Ferrell memorialized her in a recurring Saturday Night Live skit called Janet Reno's Dance Party, and Reno visited the skit the night she left the Justice Department in January of 2001. In Miami in the mid-1960s and had her first encounter with the glass ceiling, getting passed over for a job at a law firm because she was a woman. She later made partner. 1972, she lost a race for Miami area legislative seat, but learned the importance of sticking to her principles from mentor John Orr, a former state. Don't equivocate, don't pussyfoot, don't talk out of both sides of your mouth, and you'll wake up the next morning feeling good about yourself, he told Reno. One of her favorite sayings. After losing that election, Reno was hired by the state attorney's office, where she established herself as a competent lawyer. In 1978, when State Attorney Richard Stein decided to step down, Reno was named his successor. Reno built programs to help to help reform drug dealers and combat domestic violence. Another program strong-armed deadbeat dads into paying child support, inspiring a rap song named after her. It included the line, "You get all the checks you make, Janet Reno will make sure and take." She was, she also weathered a 1980 riot after an all-white jury acquitted 5 police officers for the beating death of a black insurance salesman killed in the rioting, and crowds chanted Reno's name, accusing her of being racist and demanding her resignation. To resign was to give in to anarchy, she said. Reno eventually won the support of city's black community, attending countless community meetings, church services, and parades. Into politics was the race for Florida governor, known for being down to earth. Her home number was listed in a city directory both before and after Washington, and even folksy across the state to campaign in a red Ford Ranger pickup truck. But Reno lost the primary to Tampa lawyer Bill McBride. Recognition. Republican Governor Jeb Bush defeated McBride to win a second term. General Eric Holder, who also worked for Reno as a Maine justice in 1990s, marveled at the twists and turns in her journey. Hers was great and uniquely American life. She was well lived, Holder said in a statement. I knew Janet, loved her, and all in this nation were made better by her service and by her sacrifice. I will miss her. From politics, she served on the boards or as an advisor to several organizations. Joined the board of the New York-based Innocence Project, prisoners who can be proven innocent through DNA testing. She also spent more time with her family. Reno never married, but remained extremely close to her. Asked to describe her legacy after ending her gubernatorial campaign, Reno quoted George Washington, "If I were to write down all that, I might be reduced to tears. I would prefer to drift on down the stream of life and let history make the judgment." There you have that news. The next one that I have for you is off of regated.com, and this one says, Project Veritas shows undercover reporter offered Huma Abedin's ballot. Project Veritas' newest video shows an undercover reporter who is given the opportunity to vote as Huma Abedin by Huma Abedin, of course, top aide, and has recently been in the spotlight as laptop of hers was found to contain new emails that originated from Secretary Clinton's private email server. The video shows the journalist dressed in a burqa going to a polling station. The journalist then gives the address of Huma Abedin and then gets offered a ballot. This here, if you want to take a look at it, it says there she is notified that her name is not on the roll, so she will have to an affidavit ballot. Between these clips is undercover video of a conversation between this journalist and Ellen Shulkin, Board of Elections for New York City. Just voter ID because of voting twice, their faces. You know what I'm saying? She asked Mr. Shulkin. Muslims can do that too. You don't know who they are. As do it by wearing a burqa. Say, oh wait, let me see your ID, because they don't have ID, because they don't want to discriminate because they're wearing a burqa. Saying, oh, it's so wrong, you know. Later, Mr. Shulkin says, because they can go in there with a burqa on, and you don't know if they're a voter. Counted because they come in with a burqa on and they can vote. A liberal thing to do, but I take my vote seriously, and I don't want 10 other people coming in by voting for the other candidate when they're not even registered to vote. done with good intentions, but a lot of bad results. Explaining is that in New York, voters do not need to show any form of photo identification when requesting a ballot, according to votesmart.org. An individual could commit voter fraud by submitting a ballot for another registered voter that they know are not voting. Contested ballots, an old ballot is usually discarded in favor of newer ballot. At the end of the video, the journalist claims that her husband, Anthony, whom estranged husband, Anthony Weiner, who is currently under investigation for allegedly sexting a minor and not voter fraud. Shows that the process of committing voter fraud is easy to do. Correctness and tolerance, many states, such as New York, do not require voters to show identification when receiving a ballot. They can usually wear face shielding because they know their identity. As a result, the likelihood of someone getting caught for committing voter fraud is low. Requiring identification means that anyone can claim to be someone else. Couple that with the ability to shroud one's identity with a burqa, and there is nothing theoretically stopping someone from voting for someone else is said person's last name and address. It says your vote gets discounted because they come in with burqa on and they can vote, which all be negated if states require voters to show some form of identification prior to voting. Courts have repeatedly struck down voter identification laws on the laws unduly obstruct lower income voter constitutional rights to vote. So there's that. The next one I have is off of Breitbart.com. Report: East Texas child murdered by previously deported alien. Officials in East Texas are reporting the alleged murder of 10-year-old Kayla Gomez, previously deported illegal alien from Mexico. Smith County Jail confirmed Texas that Gustavo Gonzalez, 24, is currently being held in jail on immigration detainer from Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers. Gonzalez was also confirmed to be a Mexican national by the Matters reporter Michael Wesp reported an unnamed law enforcement official claimed that Gonzalez was previously deported in 2014 for a violent crime. Court records show that Gonzalez was arrested twice in 2014 on charges for assault and injury. The previously deported criminal alien is also reported to be a family member of Kayla Gomez Orenzco, girl whose body was found on Saturday. Was found in a well at the home in Smith County, Texas, according to Sheriff Larry Smith. Gonzalez was initially reported to be Kayla's uncle, but family members later clarified that he is a cousin who acted like an uncle to Kayla. He appeared on Tuesday following a church service at the Bullard First Assembly Church, wearing the same clothes on Saturday night in a well near the family member's house. Scroll up here a little bit. There we go. The church where Kayla disappeared is located in Cherokee County. Cherokee County Sheriff's Office referred questions to the FBI in Dallas. A spokesperson for the FBI was not immediately available Sunday afternoon to respond. For the homicide has been released by law enforcement officials. Records show that the arrest of Gonzalez was made by Texas Rangers assigned to assist Cherokee County in the investigation. Reached out to the Texas Department of Public Safety for additional information. No spokesperson was immediately available for comment. For the young East Texas girl is scheduled for Sunday evening at Jack Elementary School. Living in Bullard, Texas, he is currently being held immigration detainer at the Cherokee County and Smith County District Attorneys determine charges will be filed. There's that sad news. The next one we have is off of BizPack Review. It says, message to media on Trump supporters t-shirt, hyperventilating. Rhetoric is certainly over the top. The ominous message seen on a t-shirt of a Donald Trump supporter captured the sentiment, metaphorically speaking, I'd have toward today's biased media. The man was photographed at a Trump rally in Minnesota on Sunday, rocking a t-shirt that effectively called for the lynching of journalists. Rope, tree, some assembly required. He has been no stranger to calling out the media at rallies for its blatant dishonesty. The most dishonest people you will ever meet, the candidate has said more than once. Journalists weren't too fond of the Trump supporter message, nor were those on the left who frequently benefit from the media's biased reporting. Predictably, race was immediately brought into play thanks to former CNN host Dad O'Brien. And there's some tweets here. And take a look at those for your entertainment pleasure. Have is .org, and this one said, did Newsweek already print a special Hillary edition? Allegedly, images of magazine caused fury amongst Trump supporters. Already printed a special Madam President issue that's being shipped out even before Americans vote in the presidential election tomorrow. That's the question raging amongst Trump supporters who have been circulating images of the magazine online. One of the images shows a special commemorative edition of Newsweek with Clinton on the cover behind the words Madam President. Hillary Clinton's historic journey to the White House. A highly partisan blurb on a separate page talks about how Hillary defeated fear and hate mongers based on conservative peddled by Donald Trump to triumph and ensure that the highest glass ceiling in the Western world had finally been shattered. Trump supporters reacted with a mixture of anger and disbelief. The fix is in. Newsweek already has an issue in print, boxed and ready to ship, declaring Hillary Clinton the winner, reported DC Clothesline. If it's real, why hasn't Newsweek prepared a parallel? Why hasn't Newsweek prepared a parallel Trump cover? Because, as we all know, this election is rigged, and the mainstream media, which may not even include Newsweek, long ago commented to pundit. This is absolute bull, remarked one user on the Donald Reddit. It is now going to be a race to see who will announce the Democrat victory first before the outcome of the election is actually known, just like Bush Gore. The whole thing was a hoax. This is a psyop. Don't bite. The text actually says deplorable in it. Really, would they do that? This is just to piss you off so you waste your energy, said one. This cannot be real. The language in that blurb is absolutely partisan. I have a hard time imagining even the MSN writing that copy, added another. Newsweek has been asked repeatedly whether the magazine is real, but has failed to respond so far. If this issue is fake, it's very convincing. Digital only in 2011, but it has been releasing special commemorative editions since that date, including one about Prince after his death in April. One thing we know for certain is that Newsweek will not be publishing a special commemorative edition of its magazine that is favorable to Donald Trump if he wins. Here you have that article. The next one I have here is off of BizPac Review, and it says Virginia's Democrat governor pardons 60,000 felons, enough to swing the election. Ask them to vote Clinton. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe had rights to as many as 60,000 convicted felons just in time for them to register to vote, nearly 5 times more than previously reported, and enough to win the state for his longtime friend, Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. McAuliffe sought to allow all of Virginia's estimated 200,000 felons to vote, but state courts said each individual felon's circumstances must be weighed. To get around that, McAuliffe used a auto pen to rapidly sign thousands of letters as if he had personally reviewed them. His office was saying the total was 13,000. Daily Caller News Foundation investigative group has learned that McAuliffe, who managed Clinton's unsuccessful 2008 presidential campaign, times as many letters before the registration deadline than publicly claimed. Virginia's recent political history has seen multiple races that were decided by tiny margins. The 2014 U.S. Senate race, for example, was decided by only 17,000 votes, while the Attorney General's race came down to a mere 165 voters. McAuliffe is a close friend of Hillary and former President Bill Clinton, even personally guaranteeing a loan for the purchase of their Chappaquiddick, New York mansion in 1999. He also served as Democratic National Committee, where he was a progenitus fundraiser. Virginia chief executive claimed to have no idea how felons would vote and said he had never thought about it, even though their Democratic leanings are well known. Clinton's staff emailed him after the 200,000 voters moved to call it a great announcement and set up a call about it. McAuliffe also did a major favor for the wife of a senior FBI executive who was running for governor for Virginia legislative seat. At the same time, the Bureau was investigating Clinton use of private email addresses and a homebrew server to conduct the original diplomatic business of the U.S. Virginia officials expressed surprise that McAuliffe had signed so many more letters than previously reported. Registrars and state legislators told DCNF they had no idea, and even officers of the state board of elections were kept in the dark. Could look up a felon status one name at a time of Commonwealth database if they had his or her social security number, but the system didn't display the total number of those. LaShawanda S. Singleton, spokesman for the Virginia Secretary of the Commonwealth, did not respond to the DCNF's request for the data. Asked Clara Bell Wheeler, vice chairman of the Virginia Board of Elections, she was told by Eduardo, commissioner of the Department of Elections, that the total was somewhere between 50 and 60,000. Stated that the names were available to the general registration through the Secretary of Commonwealth's website. He stated that the number was between 50 and 60,000 names. He was unable to be more precise, Wheeler told the DCNF. He assured me that the entire 216,000 felons were not sent voter registration cards. He stated that only those who had completed their voter registration forms to the general registrar, either in paper form or via the online citizen portal, were registered to vote. He did not know the number of the felons whose rights had been restored who have registered to vote, she said. Those who received McAuliffe's letter also got voter registration forms with prepaid return postage. No others in Virginia received such service. When DCNF pointed out that 60,000 could tip an election, Wheeler said, "I'm acutely and chronically aware of that." She also noted that McAuliffe has explicitly asked felons to vote for Clinton. Last-minute, highly unorthodox flood of individual restorations had to be processed by registrars who were already overwhelmed by failing computer systems. She also said that while McAuliffe claimed to only be restoring voting rights of felons, their sentences, his use of the auto pen might not satisfy the court's specific vetting requirement. I think the General Assembly caucuses that brought suit made it abundantly clear that you must look at each person and evaluate which individual's person's record. Have they served their time? Have they paid their restoration? If it was due, have they finished their probation? Are they citizens? Not been arrested for some time or for some other crime, Wheeler said. The Code of Virginia requires that each person is treated as an individual rather than as a bulk because a different set of circumstances, and those should be evaluated, she said. Next one we have is off of BizPac Review. CNN asked DNC for questions to prepare for interviews with Trump, Cruz, Jeb, and more. This one says the emails show a disturbing pattern among reporters actively working with the Democrat National Committee to run interference on Donald Trump by asking Democrat operatives to ask the Republican presidential nominee. Emails released Sunday showed CNN DNC to help with its questions to hit Trump and Ted Cruz with interviews they had with Newsweek. And the email says, "What should I ask Jeb?" from John Harwood to John Podesta. An email titled "Cruz on CNN" from April 28th, sent by DNC Search Director Lauren Dillon to DNC staff, read, "CNN is looking for questions. Please send me some topical, interesting ones." A previous email titled "Trump Questions for CNN," sent on April 25th, showed the same woman ask for questions to ask Trump in an interview with Wolf Blitzer. Is interviewing Trump on Tuesday ahead of his foreign policy address on Wednesday, she wrote. Canceled, but CNN planned to keep the questions they worked out for future interviews, according to the email. And so CNN and the interview was, try that again. CNN said the interview was canceled as of now, but will keep the questions for the next one. Good to have, well, Dillon wrote. Another email from April 28th showed as writer for Jake Tapper's CNN show assured the DNC they would be focused in an interview with DNC spokesman Louis Miranda. Facilitating Louis coming on today and bearing with us through the melee of GOP nonsense and cancellation and all that. Any particular points he'll want to make, we're going to stay Dem focused, he wrote to former DNC media booker Manarez. And it isn't only CNN. And they got another email here that you can take a look at. It says in another email, CNBC's John Harwood wrote an email to the DNC which asked Jeb prior to the interview with Jeb Bush in September of 2015. A writer for the Washington Post, Dana Milbank, asked the DNC to do the majority of research for negative columns she wrote on Trump. In an email titled "Research Request," first Trump quotes showed DNC Deputy Communications Director Eric Walker asked for negative Trump quotes for Milbank article. The article, which Milbank named "The 10 Plagues of Trump," was published on April 22nd and included 8 out of 10 quotes given to her by the DNC. The next one we have is off of BizPac Review. It says, Team Hillary, cryptic tweet warns everyone not to pay attention if a whopper leak final 2 days. It reminds me of a movie that I saw once about this little girl, and she was with a scarecrow, a tin man, and a lion meet this wizard and is told not to pay attention to the man behind the curtain. But here's how the article reads. Says Hillary Clinton's communication director, Jennifer Palmieri, warned Sunday that any big WikiLeaks emails that are released in the next 2 days are probably not real. WikiLeaks, who has an unblemished record of producing legitimate documents to fire back. Palmieri's cryptic tweet had many wondering what damning or damaging information she is released. And there's a whole slew of tweets here if you want to read those. And then it says others pointed out the fact that WikiLeaks has never been proven to have released even one fake document in its 10 years of existence, and their email releases are verified authentic by Google. More tweets there if you want to pull that up and take a look at that article. The next one we have here is off of naturalnews.com, and it says, "We the people are taking America back. Today may be your last chance to sell everything. Every asset will collapse," warns financial analyst. This is red alert moment of the action for all Natural News readers. For the last 8 years, I've been warning you that the big one is coming from the stock market. I've told you how quantitative easing, the endless money printing of the central banks, was artificially pumping up the markets by flooding the system with fiat currency. I've urged you to get out of digital fictional assets by selling stocks and buying real assets that crash, such as physical gold, farmland with water, stored food, etc. Today I'm announcing a red alert warning. The big crash is likely to begin sooner after the election, no matter who wins. I'm not the only one who sees this coming either. David Stockman warns both Trump and Clinton could lead to 25% sell-off, blares a CNBC headline. Markets are hideously inflated, warns Stockman on CNBC's Fast Money this week. The former director of the Office of Management and Budget under President Ronald Reagan urged to dump stocks and bonds ahead of the dangers that both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton posed to markets if either is elected president. If you don't sell before the election, certainly do it afterwards. Government is going to be totally paralyzed regardless of who wins, he said. There could be a 25% drawdown on the markets. Zero Hedge emphasizes the warning, printing, "Sell everything now." David Stockman warns America faces total disaster, partisan warfare. For 6 months or even longer, there will tongue-tied acrimony. There will be brinkmanship. There will be paralysis. There will be a swarm of House committees doing investigations from all these WikiLeaks, Stockman said of Clinton's hypothetical early days in the White House. This, he explains, will cause markets to implode. SHTFplan.com adds even more weight to the story. There's no other way to put it. The system as we know it will collapse. This, argues Carl Denninger of the market ticker, is a mathematical certainty. From presidential election to the rampant corruption of our financial, political, and healthcare systems, he pulls no punches and warns that the worst is yet to come unless real action is taken immediately. Failure to do so, says Denninger, will lead to a collapse of everything we consider to be part of our current way of life. If we do not start locking people up, our government, our way of life, and every asset class, the price of all of them is going to collapse. This is not a maybe, this is arithmetic. Read more from Carl Denninger at marketticker.org. He's the author of Leverage, How Cheap Money Will Destroy the World. And then it says, my analysis: if Trump wins, the stock market or the stocks take an instant dive, reflecting the fact that corrupt Wall Street banksters realize their money-making scams are going to end under Trump. After some strong government intervention, they will recover and just barely hold together until Trump is inaugurated in January 2017. After that, the economic doomsday, as the central banks deliberately crash the system to blame Trump and call for his impeachment. If Clinton wins, the stocks temporarily surge, triggering a point of lewdness on the overbought side. Then, as people come to their senses about the runaway evil of the corrupt criminal they just elected, markets plunge into financial abyss. Very likely during Clinton's first 2 years in office. Either way, the horrendously overbought financial markets are headed over a cliff. It's time to get out, or you risk being dragged over the cliff with them. Goodbye, public pensions. What this means, of course, is that your public pension is going to go bankrupt or lose the vast majority of its holdings. Tens of millions of retired government workers, teachers, professors, police officers, firefighters, and more are going to wake up one day and find out they've been royally screwed by the very system they once fought to protect. Mark my words, that day is coming. Almost everyone is living in a state of irrational denial over the mathematics of it all. Almost everyone who runs these pension funds is basing their future ability to pay on pension benefits on wildly irrational, non-substantial projections in perpetual market asset growth that simply cannot come to pass unless the laws of mathematics are transformed by God. Establishing financial people are stupid beyond belief, and they all suffer under ridiculous delusion that endless financial growth will continue forever to infinity. Markets and resources on our planet are. This is why they will all be proven wrong when it hits the fan. Yes, I'm right, and they're all wrong. Deal with it. The entire financial establishment has been wildly incorrect. Case in point, watch the amazing film The Big Short. This has become my #1 favorite film of all time. You need to see the movie because it perfectly describes the delusion, the denial, and the total idiocy of mainstream investors, even as they are living inside fictional investment bubbles that must, by definition, come crashing down. Remember that the housing bubble crash of 2008 is tiny compared to the global debt collapse that's right around the corner. When this next crash arrives, it may take down not only brokerage houses, but global banks and possibly the currencies of entire nations. Hint, the most vulnerable nations are the ones with the greatest debt. Any idea who that might be? When that day comes, every dollar you have in the bank will be turned to ashes because it was nothing but electronic numbers to begin with. That's the day you'll wish you had listened to the health ranger and converted your useless make-believe dollars into real assets like farmland, gold coins, functional firearms, storable food, and income-producing machinery like farm equipment or factory equipment. Don't make the big mistake of the clueless masses. They think everything after the election is going to be just the same as it was before the election. They are totally, inescapably, pathetically wrong. Sadly, they're going to pay a very steep price for their stupidity, and many of them will lose almost all their life savings. Don't let that person be you. The next one I have for you is off of regated.com, and it's Hillary Clinton is a climate change fraud. Being almost Tuesday, well, now it is Tuesday, but this was written yesterday, environmentalists have tried to make a case for Hillary Clinton for being the only option for protecting a supposedly cataclysmic climate event that has been caused by humans. However, with the recent revelations about the Clinton campaign provided to the general public by WikiLeaks, the former Secretary of State's views on climate change don't appear to be what they seem. In fact, by the data dumps in the hacking of Clinton campaign boss John Podesta, it's evidently clear that the presumptive president is a two-faced climate alarmist to make political gains off the bogus agendas of climate change science. Clinton merely views the application of current environmental regulations and the regime in place to fight climate change as a platform to limit growth and kill jobs. Understandably, it's not a surprising revelation, to say the least. However, a Clinton presidency would bring forth Orwellian environmental law that will limit the existence of free urban society. Nevertheless, Clinton seeks to utilize the prowess of the Environmental Protection Agency in the role of a policy-making mechanism, which is and outright unconstitutional overreach of the executive branch. This is something the current administration has excelled at, I forgot to mention. Sticking to my guns, I submit to you that Donald Trump will do more for the private and sound development of natural resources than Clinton will. Trump will revitalize the coal industry, focus on natural gas extraction, and will advocate for domestic American fracking to compete on the international stage as well. We must face the fact, and they all indicate the same thing: free markets will reign, more so under Trump, and the environment will be used to its fullest potential. Throughout this entire election, Clinton's pro-climate rhetoric presented falsehoods and was responsible for the miscommunication of real statistics and data on Earth. Campaign messaging specialists for Clinton even worked to exaggerate climate change data to fit their narrative. More to the fire, Clinton's personal news service, Think Progress, continues to purport Clinton as the solution to apparent demise. In doing so, they validate Clinton's lies as a fact to millions and send out an inquisition on all those who don't believe in mandate climate change. Nearly every time when a prominent opinion that has differed from the social narrative on accepting and alleging climate death century arises, the climate alarmists spread like wildfire to stifle the dissenting voice. However, these people are moronically propping up who has no business in dictating policy to play God on earth. Hillary Clinton, like many of her causes for better America and world, has defrauded the American people in making them believe her lies and must be stopped at all cost. The only hope is the American people to make the right choices on Tuesday. What we have is off of regated.com, and this one says, WikiLeaks, do emails show Hillary Clinton killed Vince Foster? WikiLeaks dropped new emails before Election Day. One email in particular may point towards Clinton being the one who killed Vince Foster. One of the emails released by WikiLeaks on Sunday evening was one from Matthew Powers to Sean Noonan. They are both employees of Stratfor, an American publisher and global intelligence company. In the email, it may have just been given away the death behind Vince Foster. In the email, Matthew told Sean, I believe Vince Foster was the only person the Clintons killed. How naive I was. And there's a copy of this email message. And it says, regarding analytical and intelligence comments, Polish plane crash. Heard that. I thought Vince Foster was the only person the Clintons killed. How naive I was. As Sean Noonan wrote, Hillary killed Ron Brown. What about Ron Brown? And there's a video that you can go to. And then it says, waiting for your excellent analysis of the situation. While I'm sure Putin would have enjoyed using polonium, I don't know what that is, on all those polls, the crash instead has the earmarks of Hillary's method of disposing of an inconveniently talkative Commerce Secretary, Ron Brown. Perhaps someone has radio navigation aids data that could show the plane was drawn off course. Then the article goes on and it says it's unsure at the moment how this connects to Hillary Clinton and how Matthew Powers would have this information. This is still a developing story and will be updated as we learn more. So there you have that. The next one we have is your feel good, and I'm going to do a screen share on this. It's about a 5-minute video, but I think you'll really enjoy it. We'll get this up here so you can view it. And play.
I was a young pro Puerto Rican. of the originals, the legendary costume model took in. I worked and trained with the best, Tyson, Holyfield, and George Foreman. But before I could rise in boxing, someone gave me a chance like nobody else would. I grew up in Spanish Harlem, very poor. My dresser was my crib. I was a victim of abuse in my own hometown in the streets. At the age of 22, I was on the brink of being homeless. I remember one night on Christmas Eve, I walked into the St. Patrick's Cathedral. Please give me a purpose. As I exited, I walked down Fifth Avenue, and it was this gorgeous building. I walked inside, and I said, I'm looking for work. The next day, Trump, off the street, he gave me 5 navy blue suits. He shook my hand and he said, welcome to the family. I remember the night I was assigned to drive Mr. Trump. I dropped him off, and as he's getting out of the car, he said to me, can I bring you a steak? Because I'm going to be in there for quite a while. Who am I for him to stop his meeting and bring me something to eat? You know, I hear these accusations, but let me tell you firsthand. He employed people from all origins. We were all treated like family. And I remember that. And I admired him for that. He put us all first. He once gave me a personal letter expressing just how proud he was of me. Pursuing my pro boxing career, in real life, I lost my way. Later, I also lost my wife to cancer, leaving me a single parent, 2 children, striving to be a role model. I suffered 3 heart attacks, 1 stroke, and I was once pronounced dead in the ring. You know, Trump would notice, but along with a few mementos in life, this letter is the one that gave me the most inspiration. These words, they have been a constant reminder of how much I appreciate it. I never had a father, but I was so fortunate to come across these 2 gentlemen, Customato, who taught me how to be a fighter. But Donald Trump taught me how to act like a champion. Mr. Trump just didn't give me a job that Christmas Day. What I realized today is that he gave me a tool to help rediscover my purpose, to be an inspiration to my children.
Hey, Dad. Son, listen. When you get knocked down, you get back up because you matter. And have faith that throughout life, you'll be blessed by a reminder or two recalling just how appreciated you are. Perhaps even by the next president of the United States himself.
I feel like I, back then, represented where the country is now, in need of a helping hand and a leader who will give us our purpose and legacy again. The country's on the ropes, folks, and this time,
I thought you would enjoy that. Nice story there. kind of puts things in perspective a little bit about what's important. This election facing us today, and I know there's a lot of people that have been on the ropes about who to vote for in this whole thing. On one hand, you have a guy that, okay, he speaks his mind. He's straightforward with what he says. People may not like what he says. People may think some of the things that he says are racist. We've all said things that we regret, like this tape that came out a while back, that made him sound like he was some kind of a, I don't know, playboy or something. But on the other hand, we've got somebody that's a criminal. We've got somebody that wants to destroy America. She's been selling it off piece by piece through her foundation for years, decades. Involved in child sex rings, and apparently something to do with the occult, and Lord only knows what all she's involved in. She's not given the country enough respect to even keep confidential information and top secret information safe and put it on a private server where it could be hacked into by any foreign entity or anybody that wanted into it. Any high school kid could hack into it. So I don't know. I think the answer is pretty clear. We've got somebody that wants to build America up, that wants to try to get us back on the right track and try to help us out of this financial crisis that we're coming to, and try to get our jobs back in America. Or we've got somebody that wants to give everything away and sell us down the river. We have a constitutional right to vote right now. I don't know how long that's going to last. And I feel like it's really important for people to get out there and exercise that right to vote. What do they say? Use it or lose it. So I encourage everybody today to get out and vote. It only takes a few minutes to get out there and vote. And if there's a line, okay, so you have to stand in line a few minutes. But it doesn't last the rest of your life. It's short, a little amount of pain to go through in order to use your constitutional right to vote. I hope that you keep that in perspective, and everybody stay calm with whatever the outcome is at the end of this day, if it even is actually over this day. And let's just ride this out and just see what happens with it. Keep your calm, keep your cool, keep your balance. And if you can, if it's pretty where you are, go kick off your shoes today for a few minutes, stand in the grass, soak up some earth energy, take a deep breath of fresh air, and be glad you woke up above ground. We'll see you later. Bye.